Sean, you've got a bunch of kids, and we're going to talk about the situation on the ground in Pennsylvania and what needs to happen in order for Pennsylvania to go back red in 2024. But when you hear Dawn Staley say she's fine with men identifying as women playing women's basketball, do you find this as crazy as I do, that it's almost impossible to believe that, we made a movie called Juwanna Mann, like the whole era of mocking this. South Park has obviously been on the front edge of this. And now it's basically Democrat Party orthodoxy that if you're a dude pretending to be a woman, you should be able to be in women's sports.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of blown away by it. And I say this as somebody who has 3 daughters who work their butt off every single day, committing themselves to a sport or whatever it is really that they want to do. And when you let men play women's sports, I mean, it's just, I guess I would just say, Clay, the party of science doesn't really care about science because it's basic science that men are bigger, stronger, faster than women. And ultimately, it's a safety issue. It's a safety issue, especially with how physical sports can be. God, you just don't want to see anything happen to a young girl that dedicated her life having her dreams stolen by a man and then get hurt in the process as well. It's just terrible all around.
Hey, Sean, I'm sure you saw the Wall Street Journal piece. Now they're voting red. A Pennsylvania fracking boom weighs in on Biden's reelection chances. It gets into some of the data. Look, the biggest swing state by population is Pennsylvania. So it's critical for 2024. I can't foresee a future in which Trump wins Pennsylvania and does not win the election, right? I mean, I feel like if he wins Pennsylvania, chances are he's going to win everywhere else he needs to. But this piece goes into how the Democrats' anti-fracking position has changed some of the dynamics such that now, especially out in the Pittsburgh area, the Democrats are the party of like software designers who live in the city, and the Republicans are the guys who are working in the natural gas industry and guys that are doing more sort of trade and outside jobs. What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's such a great point, and I think your assessment is spot on. I mean, there is a tectonic shift, paradigm shift happening politically in Pennsylvania. And I say this as somebody who comes from, a family of blue dog union Democrats, pro-life, pro-gun Democrats who, in many cases now, are more pro-Trump than some of my Republican family members. And here's the deal, Buck. Like, you can drive anywhere from my house in western Pennsylvania, 45 minutes in any direction, and you will drive through 2 or 3 towns that are completely derelict, old school coal or oil manufacturing towns that have buttoned themselves up. And the truth is that Republicans and Democrats both betrayed the people who lived in those towns for a very, very, very long time. And so Trump comes along, and all of a sudden, all of these people have a voice again. And ultimately, I think that this paradigm shift has brought forth this incredible opportunity for Republicans, where now we're the party of the working class. Now we're the party of the middle class, right? And you have the Democrats who have now strangely become, in my lifetime, the party of big tech oligarchs, Hollywood celebrities, ivory tower academics. And in Western Pennsylvania, I mean, this is a heavily, it's a heavily Republican area. It's a place where Republicans can do very, very, very well. But there are a lot of blue dog Democrats here, again, pro-life, pro-gun Democrats who are going to vote for Trump. And I just think there's an unbelievable opportunity for Republicans in Pennsylvania, especially with Trump at the top of the ticket. I mean, Pennsylvania is more than in play this time around. There's no question about it.
That could play out. Sean Parnell with us now, not only in the national race, I'm going to talk about here in a sec, but also with Dave McCormick trying to win back a Senate seat. I'm curious how you would assess that Senate race, and also what happened with John Fetterman, who has really, I mean, it's like he went in for treatment at Walter Reed and came out in many respects sounding like a Republican. Like, what has happened there? Did people attribute his political leanings? I mean, he regularly says he's not woke, he's not a progressive, he's very pro-Israel. He's come out in favor of fracking to a certain degree. Also, I believe now believes the border should be shut down. What is going on there? How would you assess the Senate in general, the race, but also Fetterman?
Well, first of all, we'll talk Dave McCormick first. Like, I think he's the only person, that Bob Casey has run against that can, and I think likely will beat Bob Casey. I mean, Dave McCormick is a fundraising machine, and whether or not you like money in politics or not, the guy, you need money to run effective races. I always liken money in political races to bullets in your gun and combat, right? Politics is just like war, just without the bullets. And so you run out of bullets on the battleground, like, you're done. You run out of fundraising dollars when you're running a race, you're done. But Dave McCormick has an ability to raise historic sums of money. And if you look at Pennsylvania as it is today, just by the numbers, just by voter registration numbers, Trump won Pennsylvania in 2016. And by the way, he was the first Republican to do it running for president since Ronald Reagan. He won by a razor-thin margin with a Republican voter registration deficit to Democrats of 600,000 plus. Now the Democrats only have a 380 plus thousand voter registration advantage. So it's nearly cut in half. So the state is more favorable than it's ever been, and it's going to continue to trend red every day that goes on. As far as Fetterman is concerned, I have a theory about this, and it's basically, for a long time in Pennsylvania, there has been one Republican and one Democrat at the top of the ticket for Senate. The state has always had a sense of moderation there. There's a phrase that Pennsylvania will tolerate neither too much virtue or too much vice. And so from a political standpoint, the people here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have always had kind of like an even keel temperament in the Senate. Well, this is the first time two Democrats have been at the top of the ticket in the Senate in Pennsylvania in over 100 years. And so I see Fetterman's moderation, right, as it pertains to Israel, fracking, and everything else as a political strategy to draw fire away from Bob Casey and give Pennsylvanians the state of the sort of political homeostasis that they've always had at the top of the ticket. And what you see is people writing all these stories about Fetterman, like, whoa, what happened to this guy? Look at him. He's so conservative now. But nobody's really writing about Bob Casey. And, I mean, and I look at it like this, Clay. John Fetterman waves around an Israeli flag, but the fact is, look at how he votes in the Senate. He voted against a standalone aid package for Israel in the Senate. So if you were really so pro-Israel, you would certainly vote for that. I've known John Fetterman a long time, since he was mayor of Braddock. He has been a free Palestine guy for as long as I've known him. So this goes back to an old adage that I have, like, don't listen to what Democrats say, watch how they vote.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, actually, Sean. Thank you for putting that into context for us. By the way, if you want to hear more of Sean Parnell, he has the Sean Parnell Show podcast on the Clay and Buck Network. Another reason for our wonderful radio listeners to subscribe on the iHeartRadio app to the Clay and Buck Network, and Sean's show will be there along with Tudor Dixon, Carol Markowitz. Sean, how does Trump win? You know the Pennsylvania terrain politically as well as anybody. How does Trump win in 2024?
Well, his path is going to be, first of all, again, a state's more favorable than it's ever been. But Trump has this ability, and this is perhaps more prominent in Pennsylvania than almost anywhere else, maybe Michigan as well. But Trump has this ability to bring out this crazy cross-section of voters from everywhere, even first-time people that have really never voted before. A perfect example of this is Erie County. It's a swing county here in Pennsylvania in the Northwest, but it's a Democrat county, essentially. There are more registered Democrats than Republicans. Trump won it in 2016. With Trump off the ballot in the off-cycle race in 2018, the congressman who represents Erie County lost it by almost 20,000 votes. In 2020, Trump lost Erie County again by probably 1,500 votes. So you get a sense of the turnout machine that he is. And so when you add his ability to turn out voters, plus somebody like Dave McCormick on a ticket, you kind of have a Trump-Toomey vibe going there. And by the way, those guys couldn't be more different. I mean, Toomey voted to convict Trump in the Senate, as we all remember. But you have this kind of unbelievable synergy where Dave McCormick is going to play very, very, very well in the suburbs. And then you've got Trump, who's bringing out all these first-time voters and blue-collar Democrats. Dave McCormick is going to benefit from that. And my hope is that Trump benefits from some of the suburban vote with McCormick as well. Add to that it's going to be what seems to me a great Republican year with a terribly weak Democrat candidate, both at president and vice president. Somehow Kamala Harris is less popular than Joe Biden. But look, there's a ton of opportunity in Pennsylvania with a lot of synergy on the ticket. And then you add to that a mail-in program that Republicans have never had before in Pennsylvania that is at this point very, very, very effective. I like our chances.
That's where I wanted to hit for the last question for you. The number one thing we hear when we talk about Pennsylvania is they're going to steal it, because I think a lot of people saw the way the votes kept rolling in, the changes that were made in 2020, the fact that Fetterman won and had half of his vote
Sean,
banked.
by the way. Sean was ahead going to bed, and then all of a sudden all the extra ballots came in. Sean, what was the gap?
Oh, there was a 13,000, but I mean, any way you cut it, that's why every news outlet in the country called the race for me, including MSNBC. Any way you cut it, mathematically, there was going to be a 13,000 vote margin of victory. The race took over a week, and the main issue was, even though, like I said, it took over a week to actually finish the counting, was that you had a bunch of ballots that were not signed with no identification for first-time mail-in voters and unsupervised drop boxes. So that sort of whittled away people's confidence in how we conduct elections here. So things have gotten a little bit better in Pennsylvania, but the truth is Republicans, especially in this state over the last three cycles, have not done a good job at building an election infrastructure here in this state that is required to win. Democrats, by contrast, have done well. And just to be clear for your audience, people who are listening, I don't like mail-in ballots. I don't like our system here. But the rules of engagement are what they are until we win. You can't fix things until we win, and so that has to be the first priority. And what comes part and parcel with that is building a system that will allow us to do that. And so that operation it has to have two phases, right? You have to put a ton of dollars into registering you have to register Republican voters. So you got to close that registration gap. And then focus on all the people that Trump brings out, these low propensity voters that maybe even voted for the first time in their life for Trump in 20 or maybe even in 16. Get them on the permanent mail-in vote so that in off-cycle races you can have that presidential level turnout. This is why Republicans have been getting killed in Pennsylvania in off-cycle or midterm elections. Is because the Democrats basically set the bar really high in 2020. They got all these people on the permanent mail-in voting list. And Republicans are just like, well, I don't like mail-in voting. Well, that ain't going to win elections. And so this time around, we have a program with millions and millions of dollars behind it. This is a sort of quiet behemoth working in the background of Pennsylvania to do just what I told you. And so not only do we have all these great things going, synergy of the ticket, a great year, great environment, weak incumbent president, we also have this program where we're working to register voters and get them on the permanent mail-in list so that we can bolster our chances in November. And like I said, I like our chances.
Sean Parnell, everybody, check out the Sean Parnell Show, which is in the Clay and Buck Podcast Network. Please subscribe. Sean, great to talk to you, man. Thank you.
Thanks, Clay. Thanks, Buck.